Welcome to Book Carnival. This is Anne, and we're delighted today that we're going to be talking with PJ Tracy about her latest book, Desolation Canyon. And since I have the view on Tracy, I can't show the cover of the book. Do you have a handy one?
Can.
All right.
There we go. Desolation Canyon.
Beautiful.
Yeah, great book cover.
Yes, I love the colors and it's striking. A wonderful follow-up to that first book, which I thought was so amazing.
Oh, thank you.
This one, of course, is even better and more exciting. And we delve into her life a little bit more. I thought it was so wise. You started it just a couple of months after everything ended for the last adventure. I like that it's so close-knit. See, this happened to me the other night. Say something again, Tracy.
Hello, hello, hello.
There
check,
you are.
check. Yeah.
Super check. Yes. I have to figure out why that happens. But Desolation Canyon made it sound like we were going to be down in some massive canyon and doing wildlife or something.
I know.
But nothing like that at all.
Nothing at all. Well, and part of it takes place in Death Valley, and Desolation Canyon is an actual location within Death Valley.
Right. But we don't think of her as a detective or a police person that goes to areas like that as much.
Right. Yeah, she's an LAPD, detective.
Exactly.
But
so, you want to tell us how that came about?
Well, I just, California is such a wonder. I've lived there for 10 years, and it is so rich with history and with locations. I mean, there's everything. And, I think that readers get fatigued if you're stuck in the same city over and over in a book. And even in the previous Monkey Wrench series that I wrote with my mother, PJ, we always found a way in the books to bring the action to an alternative place. So we have an interesting juxtaposition between, Los Angeles, in the big, huge city, and then you're out in this very odd and desolate place like Death Valley. It's the lowest, driest, hottest place on earth. And so that's always fun. The play between, opposites is always enjoyable.
It makes it very interesting. She is, well, let's introduce her for one thing. Your character's name?
Margaret Nolan.
Yes. And Margaret is doing pretty well, coming back from all the adventures in the previous book. But I get the feeling she's not quite ready to plunge into something again immediately.
Well, she's certainly not, because, when the book opens, she is struggling with a line of duty shooting where she had to kill someone. And she's trying to cope with that and find ways to manage that. And she's also struggling with her mother's inability to deal with her son's death in Afghanistan, Nolan's brother, Max. And he was, killed in the war there. And she's frustrated with her family and, is trying to be compassionate, but she wants her to get help. And so a lot in her life is going right, but a lot is really troubling her. So, that's her state of mind. And then she also has this tension between Detective Remy Boudreau, and you're thinking that may be, a romantic connection at some point. And so there's a lot of conflict and a lot of frisson going with Margaret, which, made her really fun and interesting to write about.
Yes. And it takes it in different directions than if it were a male character.
Yes, because we think more. Women think a lot more.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And analyze things more.
And sometimes overanalyze.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she finds the weekends the hardest. She finds it better to be active and being involved and kind of puts herself out there again.
Yeah, she certainly does, because when she's working, she's one of those type A personalities, and when she's working, she can't think about taking a life. I mean, she's when the book opens, she finds herself in kind of a binary situation, and it's before you killed somebody and after you killed somebody, and life is irrevocably changed after something like that. So it is a trauma, and there's, elements of, PTSD to that. I mean, I can't imagine killing somebody or what the emotional aftermath would be. And so, that's why I was trying to explore. And of course, on the weekends when she's not consumed with work and she has all the spare time laying, in front of her, she needs to fill it up with things. And so she has a regimen that she follows strictly. And, she does her workout, she does this, that, the other thing. But the one thing she hasn't been able to do is go back to the gun range. And so that's kind of the opening scene with her, is that she just can't, and she realizes she needs to get back. So it's fun. She's a strong woman, but I mean, she's going through a tumultuous time.
Well, and even if it was a seasoned officer and a male officer, they also suffered the trauma. They don't go out intending to kill someone.
Absolutely not. Yeah, definitely not. I mean, and it's just a shock. And I think, that's one thing where, men and women, I think, are the same. It doesn't matter what gender you are. If you kill somebody in the line of duty, there's horrendous impact and aftermath, because you're going out there to help people and to save lives, not to take them. And, it's very unfortunate, but there are times when, if you have a psychotic maniac chasing you with an AK-47, you have to shoot back. It's a choice between your life or theirs.
Right. And we're grateful that they do that. Very much so.
Very good.
Where does this lead her? How does she get involved next?
Oh, you mean as far as plot goes?
As far as going forward, she's kind of intruding into another case, isn't she?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing that you're talking about, the children of the deserts. One of the primary components of the plot is a woman and her young daughter escaping a cult compound in Death Valley that masquerades as spiritual wellness for the rich and famous, but it's led by this deranged charismatic called Father Paul. And further on into the book, you come to realize that Margaret, who is so upset that her mother won't go to grief counseling, she won't talk about her brother, her mother's son, and then she finds out that her mother is actually going to Children of the Desert, led by Father Paul, for her own spiritual healing. And obviously no one knows what Spirit or Children of the Desert really is. And so that's how she kind of gets drawn up to Death Valley, because they discover the body of an attorney in Swan Lake on the grounds of the posh Hotel Bel Air. And when they find out the murder victim's son was kidnapped decades ago, the investigation was pulled in all different directions, including to Death Valley, to an ex-KGB crime boss, to her almost lover's dark family secrets. And, ultimately she goes up there to have a, confront Father Paul.
Yeah. I thought it was the most complex plot. And yet it all fit and read smoothly. You didn't get lost. There was no confusion as to what was happening, but it was very complex. And I thought fascinating.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was, it was complex, and it's really funny. Every time I finish something, I'm like, how did I do that? Or why do I make life so hard for myself? But it's part of the joy.
Father Paul was an extremely interesting character. And I'm going to let you talk about him because I don't want to say too much and give something away.
And I don't either. I don't want to spoil anything at all, but I guess I will start by saying that my academic past is in Russian. I was a Russian and Russian studies major in college, and I was very fortunate enough to have some amazing academic mentors and professors, and they were Russian natives. And I became very good friends with them because there are very few people that are stupid enough to decide they want to be a Russian major and have to study the language. And so it was very, there were like me and 3 other people in the whole school. So I became very close to them, and they not only were mentors, but they became good friends. So I, had the good fortune of learning the perspective of the Russian people, their history, of what they call the Russian soul. As Dostoevsky said, the Russian soul is a dark place. And it is, and it's fascinating. And, I'd been sitting on this knowledge for, a long, long time. And just, it's always been so fascinating to me. I wanted to impart that into a book somehow. So there's I won't say any more, but there's a huge Russian element in several of the characters, and you really don't find out the depth of it until really the very end of the book.
Mm-hmm. No, it was historically interesting, exciting. A lot of with her mother going there, she's put into a very difficult position. Her first reaction is to run and get her out of there, which I found interesting and also found the mother interesting because she couldn't confide in the husband or her daughter, but yet she could feel free to go away to some place like that, which I find hard to understand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Which and I did as well, which was, I think, part of why I wrote it like that. It's just always when you have characters, it's fun to let them do something that is not even on your radar, and try and get into their minds and rationalize it. And it's all part of world building, I guess.
I think so. And I saw a question pop up. Let me see if I've got to not have chat up. There we go. Sheila, please mute. Okay, you talk to her. Barbara was taking care of things.
Okay, so the woman behind the scenes, right?
Yeah. What other things did you decide to pull into the plot to strengthen the suspense?
Oh, there were just so many things. I mean, you have the kidnapping, then you have the past, and the murder victim, who they found at the Bel Air, kind of leads them to his residence, this very, exclusive enclave in Hollywood. And they start to discover things about his ex-wife. And, they had stayed together for 20 some years after this tragic kidnapping of their son. And then something went horribly, horribly wrong in the relationship. And the ex-wife, Zoe, became this just, rabid, horrible alcoholic. And, you're just gradually sensing that something really, really horrible happened between this heretofore supposedly happy couple. So that was kind of part of the tension, and all the stuff is, tied up. These are all the threads that you bring in. So that was another interesting aspect. And, they're gradually learning things about these people through the people who knew them, through his boss at this import-export company. And I guess, as one reviewer once said, which I always love this, it's kind of a slow accretion of detail.
Very, very interesting wording.
Yeah, I know, I thought so too.
But you had all these threads that some seemed totally unrelated, and managed to pull them all together so that when I finished the book, it completely answered everything.
Oh, thank goodness.
I I don't always find that to be the case. Sometimes I have to then go back and figure out how that worked, but you just tied it up beautifully. And it was very complicated plot, not hard to read, but truly complicated with all of the people and what positions they really held and what they pretended to hold.
Right. Yeah.
It was really, really, I can't express enough how much I enjoyed the book. It was a quick read, but still it was complex.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
And I'm sure I know one or two others have already read it, and I hope others are looking forward to doing that. You leave her in a better spot than she was at the beginning of the book.
Yes.
She feels more confident again. She's back to feeling like she isn't carrying all the weight on her shoulders.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I think that even though it's a crazy bang up ending, she has a lot of resolution in a lot of aspects of her life. And, you know, she gets even closer to her support group, which is her partner, Al Crawford, and Sam Easton.
I thought it was interesting to show that, to bring that up and make it a point that this was something that needed and welcomed once she adjusted to the idea.
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely.
And I think that helps other people to, when you read into it, you see how human she is, as opposed to being a policewoman. She's a human being and needing that help and recognizing it.
Exactly, because it's important. I mean, I think that we all think, oh, these people are impervious and they're, you know, they're superheroes, but they're people. I mean, no matter what your station in life or what your occupation, you know, take that away, you're a human being. And, you know, it's so, I mean, characters to me are so important and they have to be authentic, you know, as does the setting as well. But I mean, I think we call it the holy trinity of plot, characters and setting. They're all equally important and you have to make sure pay attention to all of those things in great detail. So
they really are. And I know we covered some of this before, but what drew you to writing in the first place and writing this type of book?
Okay. Yeah, I just saw that popping up on the screen. It was a question for somebody. Well, just to go back and give a little brief history, PJ and I, my mother, literally started writing together when I was about 3 years old because, you know, we were a voracious, big family of readers on both sides. And so every night, you know, bedtime story hour was the highlight. And sometimes we would just run out of books, you know. And PJ had this great idea that we should start writing our own stories. And then we would act them out with my stuffed animals. And I still have those, Lammy and Teddy. I still have those ragged, moth-eaten stuffed animals upstairs in my dresser to remind me of where we began. And we had both, I think that we were born to write. I mean, as soon as we could hold crayons, we were writing and creating. My favorite activity when I was a kid was bike riding and going to birthday parties or anything. It was getting home from school, going out in the yard and telling myself, I'd walk around alone and I would tell myself stories. And, you know, I'd write a line and make sure it was perfect. And then I could move on. So I was obsessed with storytelling. And when I was about 8, PJ published her first short story in the Saturday Evening Post. So she was a published author and, you know, it was a passion of mine as well as hers. And she became very successful writing romantic short stories because there was a big market for it, and romance novels, Harlequin romances. And after I graduated from college, she said, you know, we always write together. You know, I'm an only child. We were just soulmates, literally. And she's like, I need a little help. You know, I have too much on my plate. Let's write together. And that's how the career started. And we did short stories together. And then, believe it or not, we did 4 Harlequins together. You can imagine how hysterical that was. You want to be a fly on the wall in the office when we're laughing, trying to write a love scene, you know. And then we both got very burned out on romance, because I mean we love romance, who doesn't, but when you're writing for Harlequin, they want, you know, as many books as you can write, and they wanted boy meets girl, no secondary characters, no crazy plot, and then they get together at the end. And we'd always, our favorite genre was mystery and thriller. And so we decided to take a year off, you know, and just live on our savings and take the big leap, the big risk, and write a book that we really would love to read. And that book was Monkey Wrench, and that was the first in the series. And there are 10 books in the series, and there will probably be at least one more.
They were so popular. They are so popular and so well written. It must have been pure joy to be able to do that.
Oh, you know, we had so much fun. And back then touring was big. So PJ and I would be doing 20 cities in 25 days, and it was grueling. I mean, it's so hard, but we just had a blast. And, you know, she died so young. She was ill. She had a heart failure. And I just feel like it was such a blessing to be able to have that. I mean, our time together was always a joy, but to have that experience together and traveling, and we even did tours internationally, and just having that together was so great. I feel like, you know, she was only 70 when she passed, but I feel like we packed in 3 lifetimes together.
Yes. And left us with a treasure trove of books to enjoy.
Oh, thank you.
Really, it's a great series. If someone has not read it, I highly recommend it. And then we have another question here. Might Margaret come to St. Paul among the immigrant stories with the land of George Floyd, or with something about George Floyd's devastation?
Oh, was the question that would Margaret come to the Twin Cities?
Yes, that was part of it.
Well, that's
because of all the immigrant stories, I believe.
Oh, well, you know, that's an interesting question, because you know, people are asking, is there going to be another Monkey Wrench and all this stuff? And when you have 2, you know, very different series, but you have these characters from both series working in the same field, there is great opportunity to bring them together, you know, in cases. I mean, in many Monkey Wrench novels, Gino and Magotsi, the 2 detectives, were often calling LAPD or somewhere to ask about a case, because there was connection to one of their cases. So in Desolation Canyon, I don't know, but probably not many people will get it, but I did bring a Monkey Wrench character back in Desolation Canyon in Malachi Dubnik, who was the PI that was helping Remy Boudreau, one of the LAPD cops. And Malachi was in The Guilty Death. That's the 9th book in the Monkey Wrench series, and the first one I wrote after PJ had passed. So then I keep thinking, well, I could do a hybrid. Why not?
Why not? Exactly.
Well, you know, I mean, and right now I'm almost finished with the 3rd book in this series.
Oh, so, wonderful.
Yes. So I believe I saw that was a question, if Margaret would be coming back. And yes, she will be back next year. And there are no Monkey Wrench characters in there. So just, you know, not
there's no what?
Monkey Wrench characters in this one that's up and coming, but we'll see in the future.
I think it's so clever that you would do that, especially for those of us who have read the Monkey Wrench series and might or might not pick up on it because we wouldn't be expecting it.
Right. Well, it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, and if you go to all the trouble to really develop characters, you know, even if secondary or tertiary, it seems sad to just let them fall by the wayside and be gone forever, you know?
That's right. No. Another question, what books other than your own do you read?
I literally will read anything. I read fiction of all kinds. I read literature. I love nonfiction. I will read cookbooks. I mean, I really do read anything at all. It's interesting because I'm always working and always writing. I kind of shy away from reading in my genre because I don't want to be influenced. So I'll often go back and read some old favorite authors like a Nelson DeMille or, Johnson, something different. But I usually finish a book and I binge, and I'll read like 10 books in a week. And then when I'm doing this stuff, I'll usually maybe go to like read Jane Eyre or Oliver Twist or something that's so far afield. And really, as the more you read in all different genres, the more perspective you get that you can actually use for your current project. So
Right.
but yeah, I'm a huge reader. I'll read anything.
Well, you grew up doing that, and of course it's going to be something that would be a lifelong thing.
Yes, oh, it really is. I mean, that's the greatest gift you can give a child, is a love of reading, because it opens up everything. I mean, you can be anywhere, all kinds, new worlds, real or imagined. I mean, fantasy, sci-fi, anything. I grew up reading, things from, horror and Stephen King to Arthur C. Clarke and Heinlein and, Russian, Lawrence Stroll, whatever.
So so you've got her coming up next. Is there much of a time period between this book and the next one as in her life?
No, not at all. There's only, again, about 2 months. And that's interesting that you brought that up early on, Anne, because I really prefer to do it that way. And the Monkey Wrench series was that same structure. It was like every book was a different season, because in Minnesota, we've got 4 very different seasons. So it was spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. And it's just, it is just so much better, because in the space of a year or whatever, so much can happen in a person's life. And I don't think it's fair to the writer or the reader to have to recap what's going on. Yes. Now, if you've got a month or two there, you don't need to recap like an entire, life change that could have happened in 6 months or a year. It's just kind of the little day-to-day details, and you kind of are able to pick up where you left off. And I think that's really important for continuity.
Definitely, and more realistic.
Right, because I like to think of it as a TV show, right? And you've got your episode and one leads into the next, and it just flows, and it's easier to remember, and you're not feeling jarred by, wait, they got pregnant and had a baby since the last book. I mean, you can't do that.
Now, I know someone's asking if you had a favorite book as a child, but I'm going to assume it was one of the books that you and your mother wrote when you were a child.
Oh my gosh. Well, actually, calling them books is extremely generous of spirit, because they were literally like, depending on my age, 2-3 sentences, then you get a page, and then, it was never beyond that. But as a child, gosh, my favorite book, and it's still, when I look at the illustrations and I read it, it's magic. And that's The Snowy Day. Crunch, crunch, crunch. His feet sang it to the snow. And I can see just, visually, I can see what his, footprints looked like in the snow. And it was a very simple story, but it was so brilliant and so evocative. And I think that really had influence probably on my writing, because things don't have to be florid and complicated and overblown. I think that if you can do simplicity, wow, it's a really beautiful thing.
Amazing. I agree with you, but I think it's interesting that carried forward from what you did as a child.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you have a title for the next one yet? Or a working title?
I never have a title. Okay, my working title is Deep Number 3. Really creative, right?
Well, I'm author. I expect more from you.
I know. Well, I'm putting all my creativity into the actual, machinations of the plot and all this craziness characters are doing. So I always come up, and PJ and I was the same. We would never have a story or never have a book title until we were finished with the book. And that would be a nightmare of going back and forth, the editor and our agent, and making these lists, and nothing worked out. Until we decided on something. The single exception to that was Deep into the Dark. I just sat down with this new idea and the new characters, and Deep into the Dark is, that the title is actually the title of something in the book, and it just seemed natural. And it was the first time I ever had a solid title, and the first time the editor said, "That's a great title, we're going to keep it." So that's my singular achievement as far as titles go.
Well, that's an exception, because I know author or publishers do love to change things around.
They do. And, we were always willing, because we just thought we never came out with great ones. And in fact, Live Bait, the second Monkey Wrench novel, we could not come up with a title at all. And then, in discussions, we came up with Live Bait, but there was really no reference to Live Bait in the book, which is kind of a no-no. You wanted to make some sense. So we actually went back and re-engineered. So the concept of someone being Live Bait was mentioned in the book, so we could use the title, which is really the tail wagging the dog, right? I mean,
well, as long as it works, that's all that matters.
Right, exactly.
Another question, when you write, do you start with the first sentence and write to the end, or do you plan out critical people and then write from there?
I plan nothing. PJ and I plan nothing. It's very much, you sit down, maybe, there's always a concept, you need to have a concept, and you need to have characters, obviously. A first novel in a series, you make up the characters and they're ongoing. It's easier from there on out. But we just have never been able to outline ever. The characters totally drive the plot, and they're always surprising me. I mean, it's like every morning to me is Christmas morning, because I get up and I come downstairs and I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. So it's always a surprise. And, very often in the past, there have been times when PJ and I, or me alone, really have no idea how it's going to end until 200 pages are written, or 300. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then kaboom, it happens. So it's fun. And I always think too, I know some people have to outline, but I mean, for me personally, I always think of my poor characters, doomed to this preordained fate that they have to do this. And my characters don't cooperate with that. Nobody tells them what to do.
Well, you must have great editors, because, or you give them something so perfect it doesn't have to be changed.
Well, I've been blessed. I've had a few publishers, and all the editors have been, absolutely stellar, top notch. And, I'm very much a perfectionist, so I nitpick to death on my work. But there's always something that, you get so close, you can't see everything. And so I am just absolutely grateful, and really, really rely on them to be my second pair of eyes, which is really so much more important now that I'm writing alone. PJ and I were sounding boards, and if I missed something or she missed something, we'd figure it out. I'd say, hey, wait, we need to do this. Well, I don't have that. And imaginary friends aren't very vocal, and they don't really help out that much. So they're kind of taking that place PJ and just saying, wait, maybe clarify this a little bit, or do that. It's part of the process, and I really enjoy it, because I'm like, thank you. Everybody needs direction, no matter what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And it's invaluable, and it makes you feel better and more confident.
Yeah, it really does, because I mean, there are times you're like, oh my, what have I done? This is terrible. I mean, I can't solve this. And then like, oh, it's great. And then you feel good. Cause I think, artists, cause it's so subjective, what we do. And no matter how successful you are, you can, feel a little insecure sometimes. And it's just, it's, you need to have somebody pat you on the back and say, no, you didn't totally screw up.
I think creative people tend to be much harder on themselves.
Definitely. Yeah, we beat ourselves up quite a bit. And part of it, then you produce a really, really good, solid product, but it's difficult. And we're never telling ourselves internally, oh, great job, this is awesome. We're always saying, this could be better, but I don't know what to do.
Now, tell me something. When things clear up and people are traveling to more things,
Yes.
do you plan to go back to touring and visiting?
I will do a few stores. I will do Book Carnival. And
Okay, that was the right
will,
answer.
I know. And I will do Poison Pen in Arizona and some local things. But as I get older, it's just, travel has become so difficult.
Yes.
I mean, it's been a nightmare, and it gets worse and worse. And, even with the COVID and things change and cancellations, and sadly it's not feasible, but I will definitely do a limited amount, because
we're hoping, we all have fingers crossed that by next year, everything will be where people are comfortable traveling. And of course, we would love to have you at Book Carnival and see you in person and be able to greet you.
Oh, I would love it too. It's one of my favorite stores. We always love going there, and
How many visits did you make there when you were writing together?
Four for the first 4 Monkey Wrench novels. And Pat and Ed were so great. And I was so sorry to hear about Ed. That was really sad, but we had so much fun. And at the time I was living in LA, so it was great. So PJ would fly in and stay at my house, and we'd drive down to Orange, and it was really fun. But yeah, I want to get back there. I mean, that's my old stomping ground. I've got so many friends and great memories in California. So.
Well, that makes us feel really good. Would love to, can't wait until that's possible.
Yes, me too.
I'm going to open it up with everyone on screen again and see if we can have some people jumping in with more personal questions.
Sounds good. I'll tell anything. I'll share all.
Careful what you would.
Yeah, promise. I know.
You just never know what they're going to be asking. And hopefully something out of the ordinary that we haven't had.
Right. Now I have to ask Barbara. Now, Barbara, are you the woman with the Shelby Mustang?
It's my brother who has the Shelby Mustang.
Well, I have to tell you that the Shelby is back big time in Desolation Canyon. So, I mean, that car is actually now a character.
Yes. He actually has 2.
I know, and you on Facebook, you said they're beautiful. They're amazing.
Yes, they are.
They're gorgeous.
Yes, they have their own dwelling.
Oh yeah.
Where he lives, he needed a special permit to build a garage, a heated garage. So instead, he built a car barn, because you don't need that much of a permit to build a barn. So he built a car barn.
Well, I mean, those things, they deserve something better than a garage. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
And they're
car barn.
Well, and they're incredibly valuable. I mean,
yes, they are.
Yeah. So they should have their own armed guards.
Oh, well, yes, they get better care than anything else.
I believe it.
And why did you choose the Shelby for your story?
Because my boyfriend of many years was a big car collector and a big car fan, and his favorites was always the Shelby Mustang, and we'd go to car auctions all over together, which was really fun because I've always loved cars too. And he was a screenwriter, and one of his, he always wanted to write about Carroll Shelby, you know, who designed the car. And actually he knew Carroll because he interviewed him multiple times as research for the script that he was working on. So that's kind of my attachment. And so it was kind of a nod to, you know, a dear friend of mine, and just my love of cars. So
Well, it's unique for what, and it makes it interesting for that reason too.
exactly. And also when I was a really little kid, friends of ours, their son had Shelby. So I remember as a little kid seeing that thing. It's so beautiful. And he was much older than I was. He took me for a ride, and you know, so a lot of good memories.
Absolutely. More questions, ladies? Anybody?
We've never seen Sheila's face.
What was that?
We've never seen Sheila's face. I just see Sheila Glover, but
Yeah, she hasn't turned on her camera, I don't
right.
think. But that's okay. She can hear us and be a part of this.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I think we covered so much, but we did it so quickly.
We did. Well, it's been an hour.
I think the question that I asked was just about your teachers in school. I mean, you know, sometimes I can always remember a professor of mine at Miami University in Ohio really influenced my goal of writing, you know, to simplify everything. And I think I tended to be way too verbose. I just wondered if they encouraged your style, your
Oh
natural.
my God, teachers are so hugely important. And well, I will just tell you how important it was, and how much I love to read, and how much my teachers loved that I love to read, because they would, even from first grade, they would send me off during English class by myself to the library so I could read.
Oh, wow.
And I adored them all throughout my entire elementary and high school, junior high and high school. And in fact, right before COVID, when I was doing a signing in Minneapolis, there was a line and this woman came up and I knew exactly who she was.
Mhm.
And it was my first grade teacher.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Oh,
She had read and found, and I'm like, you know, I was 51 at the time, but she remembered me. She remembered PJ and I. She remembered my vocabulary. She remembered everything. And about how my mom would always come and pick me up from school so we'd go horseback riding after school. And she just remembered everything. So we got back in touch, and she was just at a in-person I had in Minneapolis again. And now she and her wonderful husband and I meet for lunch every few months.
Oh,
my gosh.
And every signing I have that's locally, there's always at least 4 of my old teachers that
Oh
show
my
up.
goodness.
And
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
super-
and different ones, you know, I mean, 4 different ones. I mean, gosh, my big thrill was, I think it was my 8th grade math teacher showed up with a bunch of my other teachers. And I was like, oh, I was embarrassed. I'm like, I was so horrible at math. She's like, no, you were great at math. It just didn't interest you. Which is true.
good point.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, it was so important. And I think that, you know, my personality as a writer was formed so early that by the time I got to college, it was a fait accompli. You know, I was going to be a writer. And that's why I wasn't an English major, and I took no lit classes. And that's why I went to Russian. I was like, hey, I'll learn a new alphabet and a new language and a new culture.
Wow.
Well, it just expands the horizon and comes to play into what you put in your books.
Well, you know, it really does. And I always joke to people about, and they would joke with me, it's like, how is your extremely expensive Russian major, doing for your career? Well, actually, it came in handy. And, I learned so much. I mean, you go to liberal arts school and you're doing everything. I mean, I was very heavily into music, essentially a minor vocal performance. I wanted to be an opera singer in my spare time.
Okay.
And I studied opera and I was very, very serious about it. But I was also a little bit of a wild child. And opera requires a huge amount of discipline. And I was a party girl, but I had a lot of musical talent. So I joined a rock band. I was in a rock band all through the 90s. And we actually played all over Minneapolis and the Midwest.
I think that suits your personality much more than opera.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I just love the opera. And I mean, there's nothing more powerful than hearing opera come out of your body. It's like, I mean, it's a spiritual thing. Rock and roll is a little different, but did I have fun? That was so much fun.
And that's the most important part, whatever you do in life, really.
So I got to enjoy both in equal measure,
This has been a wonderful visit. If anybody has not read the Monkey Wrench series, you must do so in your spare time, of course. But first of all, you have to focus on Desolation Canyon.
And I will be shipping signed books to you, Anne, on Monday. So.
Yes, she is so kind. She was willing to sign books that came from the publisher, and they're on the way. She was disturbed they wouldn't be here for today, but I assured her it was just fine. We all understand what's going on today and how difficult it is to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
But yes, we will have signed books, and that makes it even more special.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for today.
Oh, Anne, thank you. I adore you, and I adore Book Carnival, and thank you all for spending Saturday afternoon with me. It's been a delight and just a fantastic time. And you always have the best questions, and everybody else, thanks for chiming in with questions. It's so much fun to chat with people.
Well, it's a pleasure to talk with you, and we'll be doing it again, but hopefully next time is in person. We're fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, definitely. Yes, next year I'll be in Orange.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
Really. Bye-bye now.
Very much. Bye-bye. Have a great Saturday.
You as well.
Bye-bye.